Hey Spartans, Josh here. A quick content note before we get into this week's episode. You're about to meet one of 5 guest speakers that have courageously volunteered to contribute their experiences, knowledge, and support to the ongoing mental health crisis our nation is facing. For the whole month of May, I will be rolling out a 5-episode series interviewing survivors of suicide, as well as leaders in mental health awareness. We're sharing our stories of recovery in hopes that they save at least one life and hopefully many more. If you're not in the headspace to receive these stories and testimonies, please stop the podcast here. Thank you for listening, and please take care of yourselves. Let's go. Alongside millions of other Americans who have survived a suicide attempt, you are one of those millions. But you've gone on to live this full and healthy and successful life.
I lived to please others. I went to college like I was supposed to. I got the corporate job like I was supposed to. I played sports like I was supposed to. I bought the house like I was supposed to. Bought the Cadillac like I was supposed to. I made the 150 grand like I was supposed to. And I did all the things I was supposed to, but for the wrong reasons. I had 35 oxy in my mouth, and the only reason I didn't swallow them was because I said, I'm too big. This isn't going to be enough to kill me, and I don't want to put my family through watching me go through the hospital side of this. I don't want to build up the debt that's going to come with a failed attempt. But this is how God works in mysterious ways. If I could have gotten to that gun, I would not be here right now. I was tired of not feeling like I was winning anywhere. I was just tired. I was done. I was absolutely done. I had the vulnerability and modesty to say, I need help. And they all basically said a version of the same thing. I don't know how to help you. Good luck. I realized no one was coming to save me. In that moment, I said, I have to win the next decision based on what I know winning is, my own way, 100% for myself, or I'm not going to survive this. It's okay to struggle sometimes and still be a champion. It's real to struggle.
Amen.
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick, and I am excited to welcome Mike Claudio back to the show. So for those of you that have been longtime listeners, you got to hear the big stud and I chop it up a bit, I don't know, a couple months ago even. And we
it was probably like 6 months ago at this point.
Man, time flies when we're having fun, right? But if you listen to the show and you got to listen to Mike before, you heard a really impactful person that's having a big impact with his coaching clients throughout the construction and trades industries and all sorts of things, helping them win at a much bigger level. Today is going to be a vastly different conversation, and I'll tell you how we got here before I turn it over to Mike. But Mike and I were at a dinner for an Arte event, very nice dinner, and we're in Nashville, Tennessee, at this beautiful dinner with another probably 30 entrepreneurs. I got to sit next to Mike and his lovely wife, Tiffany, and at any of these dinners with high entrepreneurs or high-end people in general, you don't just talk about the weather. And I don't even remember how this came up. But Mike and I got in a serious conversation where he told me that he attempted to take his own life. He hit rock bottom at one point. And I was like, I had this idea at the time. This was back in November of last year. And I said, hey, Mike, I'm going to run a show. I'm going to run a month on Mental Health Awareness Month, run a whole campaign about awareness and hopefully changing the narrative on mental health. Would you be willing to tell your story? And he graciously said yes. So, Mike, welcome back to the show, brother.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. No, this is a story and a perspective that I've been more open to talking about. I think what sparked the conversation that night, if I'm looking back and I remember correctly, we were talking about my book and how the book opened up with the story about this and how difficult it is in some sense to talk about it, and then how easy it is on other sense to talk about it with the standpoint of the impact that it could make. And so I think we were talking about my book when we were talking about when that book.
Good memory. Because I, for the life of me, could not remember how we got on such a serious topic. But
there were so many conversations that night, though, man. It was a lot of sensory overload, a lot of different, like you said, we're not having basic conversations. You're having like major, like business, life altering type conversations that just like, it's sensory overload sometimes.
Yeah. And it's great because you get to go deep with people real quick. And get to know their heart. So let's start here. Suicide is a growing problem. I mean, rates have skyrocketed since, and attempts and actual suicides have skyrocketed since COVID lockdowns. And yet stigmas often prevent people from talking openly about it. And here you are, successful, highly successful entrepreneur, great husband, great father, and myself, same thing. Like, I haven't been to that low point where I've contemplated taking my life, but I've been open about my father-in-law's suicide. My family and I are trying to help others in that sense. I think the stigma's gotten a little bit better, but why do you think the stigma exists still? And why have you chosen in such a way to be open now with your story and try and break that stigma?
I think overall, people are so afraid to appear weak. And actually, I think I released a podcast today. I don't know exactly what date this is going out, but today on my podcast, I released something, the difference between weakness and vulnerability. I think a lot of people appear sharing places that they're failing in life or struggling or their lack of value. They don't know how to describe it in a way that doesn't sound like bitching and moaning and weakness. And I think there's such a difference between people who are weak and people who are vulnerable. And I think if we can help people analyze the difference in their own approach to what they have to say, I think we'd have people more open to talking about it. So how I describe this between weakness and vulnerability, weakness is just bitching about the same thing over and over again and never doing anything about it. I view that as weakness, right? Those whiny people who bitch about their health or bitch about their spouse or their marriage or bitch about their job or their business, but like they're always bitching about the same thing. I think when people think about describing internal weakness, they view that. They view the bitchiness side of it. I think there's an alternative side to this where it says, hey, I'm feeling really anxious right now about this. Or can we talk about it? So I can overcome this. And it doesn't turn into this like who's struggling more conversation. And there's not a bunch of people trying to one up each other on whose pile of shit's bigger. Because when that happens, people then minimize their pile of shit, not recognizing it's still a pile of shit. Yeah. Like just because somebody's trying to one up you with their bullshit story or what they've struggled with, or then they, well, that sucks for you, but let me tell you how bad my life sucks. It becomes this battle of contending for who's in a worse spot. And when you're in that rock bottom, when you're feeling that weakness, you don't have the energy to combat somebody that what you have to say needs to be heard right now.
Yeah.
And so as a culture, we have a very one-up type mentality. Whether good or bad. Hey, look at this new boat I bought. Look at this bigger boat I bought, right? Look at how bad but this one time my life was way worse than that. And people feel like they're almost helping you by saying your life isn't as bad as you think it is because look at how bad my life was or is. But then when that happens, the person who needs to talk doesn't feel like their problem's really that big, so they don't treat it. They don't talk about it. They don't seek help. They don't have conversations. They don't get medicated. But it actually is a really big deal to them.
Yeah.
And the longer you ignore it, the louder and stronger and more it takes control of you. Anxiety and depression that's the warning sign. That's the alarm going off that, hey, you're off track. You're doing something wrong. You're around the wrong people. You're in the wrong career. You have bad habits or anxiety and depression is after the trigger of the mistake. You do this and then the anxiety shows up. It's learning the trigger. It's learning what drives it, but people don't know how to do that when they're in it. And so I think that our culture has taught us that your problems might be bad, but somebody's worse off, so your problems aren't real. Or you shouldn't feel that way. Look at how successful you are. How can you be depressed? And then so we feel like we shouldn't, which then multiplies the I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable, I actually don't deserve the things I have because who am I to feel bad? And then so we don't do anything about it.
Yeah, dude, that's so powerful. There's actually a couple different things I want to hit on there. What someone did there was minimize someone else's pain when you gave that example. And that can help or just provoke a spiral for that person that's truly in pain. There's a great book I read a long time ago. I can't remember the author, but the title is called Are You Really Listening? And what you're keying on is
I have that book. I don't remember who the author is either, but I've had that book.
So if you look it up, it's not a book that sold millions and millions of copies, but it probably should. because it is a tremendous read for anyone that's in coaching, advising, any sort of sales, or really any sort of relationship, because what you just described is so prevalent in our culture about people are listening to respond and try and one up, like you mentioned, instead of actually listening to care. And so that book goes deep on helping you become a better listener. And it really helped me in my advising career, it really helped me in my leadership career. So I would highly recommend that book. And make sure that if you're and try and catch yourself in in relationships or just one-on-one conversations, are you thinking of a story to tell when they're done talking? Or are you actually listening to what they're saying? Are you seeking the pain in their voice? Are you seeking to empathize with them? Are you seeking to truly understand what they're saying? Or are you just thinking of a story and waiting for them to shut up so that you can one up what they're saying?
Yeah,
so that's really good.
A very common issue on why people don't want to talk about.
Yeah. So alongside millions of other Americans who have survived a suicide attempt, you were one of those millions. You've gone on now and I don't remember how long ago it was, you can talk about that, but you've gone on to live this full and healthy and successful life. Had you not told me this and been vulnerable with me, I would have never in a million years assumed that that's a spot that you got to, right? Because you have all the traits of being an alpha male, highly successful, live this great life with a beautiful family. All these things that, from the surface level, I would have never assumed that you got to such a rock bottom place. So if you would tell the audience, and again, thanking you so much for being vulnerable, tell us more about how you got to that rock bottom. I know it was many years ago, and the incident that, or what led up to the event of you choosing to go down that path.
Yeah, so it's only happened once. So I want to be clear with everybody. Like, this was a one-time situation that I hit, like, beyond rock bottom, what I would consider. But I lived decades. I lived to please others. I was a real big people pleaser. And so I went to college like I was supposed to. I got the corporate job like I was supposed to. I played sports like I was supposed to. I bought the house like I was supposed to. Bought the Cadillac like I was supposed to. Made the 150 grand like I was supposed to. And I did all the things I was supposed to, but for the wrong reasons. They weren't my definition of winning. When I talk about building your championship day, building your champion's legacy, like building what winning means to you, this was learned through this experience. And so I did the things. I did everything that I was supposed to do via some external definition of success. And I always sacrificed my way or my perspective or my opinion or my emotions, and I just push it down. This wasn't the first time I dealt with anxiety or depression, but what happens, this was December 2019 is when the incident happened. And what ultimately led to it was you're gonna laugh at this, but I got a double hernia. It was right around Thanksgiving 2019. And I got this hernia, I don't want to minimize it, but like, I got it adjusting my body in a chair like this. Like I squatted 355 pounds for 5 sets of 5 that morning. That evening, I went like this in a chair to adjust my body. Pop, double hernia. And so, one of the most painful experiences of my life, but that led to a surgery, and that surgery led to Oxy. And I truly believe that Oxy was what prompted the below rock bottom I had ever been to happen. It took all ability to self-coach and manage my emotions away. And so this was probably 3 or 4 days after surgery. And, I struggle when I can't be athletic. I struggle when I can't work out. I mentally break. I mean, that's probably the best way to say it, but every time I've had a major fall emotionally, it's when sports or athletics was taken from me due to an injury. And so
cognition.
And so for me, I knew that, okay, not being able to work out leads to other habits, leads to a lot more time inside your own head, leads to an environment where I can't, put emotion or energy out, and it just swirls. And that feedback loop in your head when you have nowhere to win, right? Life is hard. Marriage is hard. Parenting is hard. Running a business is hard. The gym is where I win. The gym is where I go crush shit, right? This is where I go get PRs. I go push past my boundaries. I can set an expectation and exceed it and feel the win, right? That's where I get the wins. Because, parenting, it's hard to find a win when you're parenting, right? Marriage is hard, right? Running a business is hard. Everything's working against you. The gym's where I own my own success. And I can document the wins. I can plan the wins. I can own it. I can go all in that environment and own the outcome a little bit more directly. When that's taken from me, I struggle finding wins elsewhere. And so that November around Thanksgiving is when the slide started. And I think the Oxy that I was prescribed post surgery is really what just let the bottom completely fall out. And so in my book, I talk about, I basically self-coached myself through the experience. And if you picture this, this duality and this dichotomy of this broken, sniveling boy and this military CEO, well put together, confident man, both me in my own head. One, the child sniveling, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of being in pain. And this man, this other version of me, what I would consider the championship version of me, the me that I aspire to be, is you're too strong to give up. And it just, for 4 hours, this conversation went on in my head. This is probably 10 o'clock at night till 2 in the morning. I'm sitting on the couch. Tiff's in bed, the boys are in bed, and for 4 hours, I'm done. I'm tired. I'm over this. I don't want to go on. I don't want to continue. I don't want to do this. And it just was this volley back and forth. And all this, we'll say this championship version of me, the picture of me just said, you're too strong. And, one of the biggest things where God absolutely played a role in this. So what ultimately happened is I put 35 Oxy in my mouth and then spit them out. So, some might say I didn't fully attempt it, but who are you to judge what I was doing? But I had 35 Oxy in my mouth, and the only reason I didn't swallow them was because I said, I'm too big. This isn't going to be enough to kill me, and I don't want to put my family through watching me go through the hospital side of this. I don't want to build up the debt that's going to come with a failed attempt. And so I spit them out, woke Tiff up, made her aware of the situation, and we kind of worked through, which we'll get to in a second. But this is how God works in mysterious ways. So every time I tell this story, I get a little emotional about it. So we moved in 2019. We made the decision to move in 2019 to sell our house, pay off debt, move into this townhouse to be able to put more money back in the business and pay off debt and everything else. And so this was probably May 2019. We decided to move. I think September we actually moved, and then this happened in December. Well, in the move, Josh, we lost the key to the gun safe, and the replacement had not shown up yet. I'm telling you right now, if I could have gotten to that gun, I would not be here right now. I physically couldn't get to it. The keypad had died. We had ordered a replacement key. We couldn't find the key to get into it. I could not get to my gun. And that makes my heart race right now, just thinking about how it all happened for a reason.
So you had in your head,
if I could have gotten to that gun, I'd be gone.
So you kind of even were rational enough to go down the pill. Can't get to the gun, so the pills are the next option.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I was done. I was miserable. And I was miserable for a lot of reasons. I was miserable for living out of integrity with who I really wanted to be. I was miserable for being too much of a giver and just giving to empty on a regular basis. I was tired of being physically in pain from this hernia and this surgery. I was tired of being, kind of feeling worthless. I was tired of not feeling like I was winning anywhere. I was just I was done. I was absolutely done. And there had been times in my life leading up to that where I wonder what would happen if I was gone. Right? I've had thoughts of what if I was dead? Would that make what would happen then? Who would show up? I think a lot of people have those thoughts around if I were to die, what would happen? But this was the first time that had ever, and really the only time I was ever in a position of I am actually ready to be done right now. And so I woke Tiff up. We kind of went through the journey of kind of coming back from it a little bit. And it wasn't like an overnight, so basically flushed all the pills down the toilet, didn't take any more pain meds from that night on. But it wasn't like an overnight switch. I was broken. I was empty. I was done. And it took months before I felt like interested in continuing. And this is a part that, looking back now, I appreciate that it was probably an unfair request. And some people can see it from multiple perspectives. But I went to some of the most prominent men in my life the day after and was like, this is what happened. I'm empty. I need help. And it's easy to say what you would do in that situation, but until you're proposed that situation, it's hard to know what would happen. But basically, they all said a version of the same thing. I don't know how to help you. Good luck. And these are like the closest people to me. And that was when everything changed for me. Like everything that you know Mike Claudio to be today, Josh, happened in that moment, that day. Because I realized no one was coming to save me. Like the people that I had been there for, the people I bent over backwards for, the people that I poured myself out empty for, the people I would have done anything for in my darkest, deepest moment, I had the vulnerability and modesty to say, I need help. And they all basically said a version of the same thing. I don't know how to help you. Good luck. And so I stopped asking people for help because I'm like, if those 3 or 4 men aren't interested, I'm not asking tier 2 friends and tier 3 friends, right? I'm not going to keep going down that list. That doesn't make sense. If these people who I did the most for couldn't be there for me, then like, why am I going to go deeper down the rabbit hole of friends and just continue to be let down? And I made a decision in that moment. And it was like Win Fast, Win Often, which you know as a tagline for my company, became a survival mechanism. In that moment, I said, I have to win the next decision based on what I know winning is, my own way, 100% for myself, or I'm not going to survive this. And I made a decision in that day that I will never make a decision based on what other people want, think, or believe again. And that at the time it was because if I don't make this change, I'm not going to, because it was weeks later. I was going on walks in my neighborhood, doing 75 hard type shit, wanting to throw myself in front of a fucking vehicle, just be done.
Wow.
Because like now you have to face the reality that you gave up. Like I had to face the reality that I gave up.
Yeah. So you have this, guilt. That's
guilt, shame, embarrassment, the embarrassment that the closest people to me didn't like. I don't say didn't want to. I think they wanted to, but they didn't know how to. But like all of that, beyond the mental, emotional, and physical drain I was on, I had this reminder that I gave up on me and so did everybody else. And that's the narrative we tell ourselves. And I'm sure there's an alternative to that perspective. But in that moment, I reached out for help and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And so weeks, if not months, of battling the demons, battling the darkness, battling the why am I even staying? Who am I even staying for anymore? All these people that I thought were like I was there for weren't there for me. Like, why am I even still here? And I remember, I don't remember the date, but it was sometime in January, and I'm going to start operating 100% selfishly for my wife and my children. And this is when I learned the dichotomy of selfishness. Because there's a selfishness to take from people.
Yep.
And there's a selfishness to fill yourself up. Not the same thing. So my selfishness became incredibly started vetting who am I giving of myself to? Money, time, energy, effort, emotions, thought. Like who's getting from me? They don't deserve that. Because I'm at 0, I'm at 1 or 2% of battery life right now. If I give anything to anybody, I'm back at 0. And that's a dangerous place for me to be right now.
Yeah.
It was a pure survivalist mentality of I have to win the next decision 100% based on what I believe is right, regardless of how that impacts others. And to say the results have been unexpected is an understatement. Like the amount of people I have impacted by worrying less about impacting people is in the hundreds of thousands. You know, and I'm not trying to brag about it, but like, I get 50,000 views a month on YouTube now, which wouldn't have been a thing if I would have died. I get 15,000 downloads a month on my podcast, which wouldn't have been a thing if I wouldn't have survived. Really, those are just two metrics right now. I'm only 36, man. What happens when I'm 40 or 60? The millions of people's lives I'm going to impact because I stopped caring about people. I only focused on what winning meant to me. Holistically, my version of it. And if that bothered other people, I just chose to not let it impact me anymore. Because I was at 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% battery life. If I gave any of my energy to anybody else, I would have been empty again. And that was a really dangerous place for me to be at that point. And that's where one of my never again statements is I will never again let anybody steal my power. And everybody knows exactly what I mean. When you go to that party you know you shouldn't have, you feel depleted. When you help somebody out who you know doesn't appreciate it, you feel depleted. When you go above and beyond for somebody who wouldn't go above and beyond for you and you know it, you feel depleted. People know what I mean by people stealing their power. The problem is you had full control over that activity. You just don't think you do.
100.
That's the decision I made, is I'm not going to give other people my power anymore. And because then I realized going through this journey that not everybody deserves the best version of me. Because the best version of me is a giver. And so a moment of warning to people, I went from full giver to no giver. And that actually made me feel a little bit worse because it went against who I wanted to be. And I realized the middle ground is I can be a giver, but I have to be very filtered on who I give to. Because I went from giving to everybody everything I had to nobody got anything from me. And I didn't like that either because that's not who I really am. And so the lesson I learned high level over this whole experience is not everybody deserves the best version of me.
Yep.
And there's not like a bullet point checklist of if you got to do this before you get access to Mike, but it's like you have to have integrity, right? You got to do what you say you're going to do. You have to be willing to give and take.
Yeah.
And then there's this process that like people think I'm an asshole. People think I'm a dick. Good. Because if that's really what you think about me, you have not given me a chance even to get to know me at all. You just tried to take from me without giving me anything. And so you got a blockage. You got a wall. And so if you think I'm a dick, that's a really easy sign for me to say that you haven't given me a chance to even get to know me at all. You just wanted to take from me without giving anything. That's how I know who belongs and who doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I want all people pleasers to play this last 5 minutes or so back over and over again, because if you have ever considered yourself a people pleaser, Mike is preaching from the pulpit to you right now. So play that over and over again. I want to go back to Tiffany in this last, so I can just be empathizing with her. You wake her up in the middle of the night. You guys got young children. She's a loving wife, and you just tell her what happened. And now she's dealing with the fallout, right? So talk through how because I can just imagine like how scared she is, not only in that moment, but then probably every day after that, worrying that she's going to come home one day and you're not there or you're dead.
Yeah. So we were on a trip once and we listened to a podcast episode. It was Ed Milet was interviewing a woman whose husband died of suicide.
Oh, the pastor's wife.
The pastor's wife, yep.
Yeah.
And so that episode talks about what do you do? And there were some questions that just, because we heard that podcast, jumped right into Tiff's head. And one of the best questions to ask in that scenario is, how are you going to do it? Where? When? With what? And that's where she started. Well, what were you going to do? I was going to do this. Where? Downstairs. When? Right now. And just it opens the conversation to understand like where the person's head is. I can't tell you much what happened after those first couple questions. The next day or two was challenging. So I don't have much recollection. The best way I can describe it is like, it was like a panic attack. Like I struggled breathing for a couple days. Like that really heavy, tight chest, just can't organize your thoughts. Everything's running a mile a minute. You're just on edge. Like, I mean, I think a panic attack is probably oh my God, I almost just killed myself. Like, I don't know what a proper response is in that moment, but that's what mine was. So I don't remember much about the days following, but the months following, because so Tiff and I, we actually just released a podcast recently talking about this, her telling her side of the story. And there was fear that, you know, anytime she would leave me alone, something might happen.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So we got rid of the gun, we got rid of the pills, we got we'll say the instruments out of the house. But from there, it was more of she didn't know what to do. And so it was a lot of walking on eggshells for her. It was a lot of uncertainty. It was a lot of, what do I say? How do I say? When do I say? She actually, something that she did that was there till the day we moved out. So we moved into that house like September. That sounds like September. This was December. We moved out June 2022. So we were there for 2.5 years. And so from the master bedroom to my office was a hallway. And she put scriptures on Post-it notes all the way down the hallway. And so every day I walked from my bedroom to my office, I read these scriptures. There's probably 20 of them going down the wall and on the door to my office. And honestly, right now, I couldn't tell you what any of them said, to be honest with you. But I know that every day was a reminder that like, I survived this for a reason. Now it's time for me to go figure that out.
Yeah.
My way, 100% my way. And so I went through that. So that's December 2020 or 2019, right? April 2020, I lost my entire business. This is 4 months later. I lost almost all my clients when the pandemic hit because I have contractors.
Yeah.
They weren't all essential. So not all of them can work. I lost 95% of my revenue between March and April of 2020.
So did you have thoughts then?
No. April 1st? It was literally like overnight. Like you remember, man, it was like from everybody's fine to everything's not fine. It was like overnight. And so between March to April, I lost 95% of my revenue, and I stayed there for 3 or 4 months through the summer of 2020. And I remember April 1st, 2020, I said, either I'm going to crawl back into a bottle and die, or I'm going to do phase 1 and write a book. And I wrote the first 10 chapters of my book, April 2020. Because I only had two clients left. So I had all the fucking time in the world to be miserable. I made 2 decisions. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to call that one decision. I'm going to do phase 1 to give me something to focus on every day, stay sober, and write a book. Don't want to write a book, but no, what better time than now? I have more time than ever. And the second decision was, I'm going to maintain a positive persona on social media. And I posted every day. I was doing lives every day. I don't have the exact number, but it was over 600 free coaching calls in those 3 months. Like 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there for just, hey man, I can't operate. What do I do? I did over 600 free calls in those 3 or 4 months. If you needed somebody to talk to, I was going to be that guy. I didn't charge for any of them. I never charged. I never went back to them. I never prospected them. It just, if you need someone to talk to, if you need a conversation about what to do in your business this time, here's my Calendly link. And it was every day I was on the phone with people, just talking them through it, being an outlet, being a positive influence, maintaining positive energy. And sometimes being what other people are looking for in a season, you actually become what you were looking for in that season.
Yeah.
And so I just made a commitment. I'm going to maintain positivity. And I don't know if I would have been ready for that had I not been through what I went through 4 months earlier, to be honest.
Well, and you talk about the dichotomy earlier, where you had already made a decision not to be a people pleaser and to do things for yourself. And doing things for yourself, in turn, allowed you to give to others in such a huge way. And that's what a lot of people pleasers don't understand is, being selfish is the most selfless thing to do if you're doing it for the right reasons, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot fill someone else's cup up from an empty cup, meaning your cup has to be full to be able to pour yourself out into. So those over 600 calls, however many months later, when things opened up, or years or whatever it might be, how much business do you think came from that, generosity?
I never tracked like what free calls turn into clients, but I know I lost 95% of my revenue for 4 months and still tripled revenue year over year from 19 to 20. Like Q3 and Q4, I've tripled every year since. So like I started coaching full time at the beginning of 2019. And I'll be fair, I'll be transparent with this. Like I set a revenue target for 2019. I said, if I get to $125,000 in revenue in the 10 months I'm doing this full time, I'll consider it a win and I'll make this my career long term. If I don't, I'll just go get a job, because I was really good at a few things. Leadership and sales are two of the things I'm great at, and every business needs both of those things. So I was like, I'm going to give this 10 months. If I can't hit 125 grand those 10 months from scratch, I'll say this isn't going to work for me and I'll go get a job. So I hit 130 grand in 2019. And then, I was doing probably 30, 40 grand a month going into 2020. And then like April, May, June, July, I think I did $3,500 each month. And I was still spending 8 or 9 grand a month on payroll and content and everything. I was losing money like crazy at that time, right? That's a lot of money at that time for me.
Yeah.
But then I still finished, I finished 2020 at like 380 in revenue. And then 2021, I did $1 million. Then 2022, I did 2.5. And we're trending to do 5 million this year.
That's freaking awesome. So what you guys just heard, I want you to make sure you tracked, is he lost 95% of his business in 2020 in Q2, essentially.
Yep.
In Q3 and 4, made it up triple. And but remember, in Q2, he was doing a shit ton of work, not only on himself, but also giving the game away for free.
But I'll go back to, well, Mike, it sounds like you were just being a people pleaser. No, I am somebody who likes helping people. But I had to draw the line on who was getting it, right? Not everybody deserves the best version of me, right? And so I had to make a decision. Well, I want to help people. That makes me happy. That is for me. I like helping people. I didn't need to please everybody, which made me one of the best coaches that I could have been, was saying, I don't need to tell you what's going to make you happy. I need to tell you what you need to hear.
Yes.
I wasn't on these calls going, you're going to be okay, sweetie. Bro, get your fucking ass to work. What can you work on right now? Right. And so I pivoted to, I really helping people. That's part of what brings me, that fulfills me. I was trying to help the wrong people for the majority of my life. And so those, like, looking back, like, I think everybody looks back at business and something, man, it was so much fun back when we had nothing. Right? Like, it was so much easier. You just did what you needed to do every day, and it was enough. But I remember telling Tiff, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but there's no plan B. I ain't going back. This is what I'm built to do. And I sat at my computer for 10 hours a day, just would sit there and be like, what can I do? What do I have control over? I'd send DMs, I'd make posts, I'd make content, I'd shoot videos, I'd go live, I would do these calls. Like, I'm gonna be here 10 hours a day at this computer doing something to move the ball forward.
Yeah.
And I can't, and Tiff still tells me stories, like she'd walk in and I'd be like sitting back in the chair like this, and she'd look at me and she goes, what are you doing? I said, I don't know what to do next, but I'm gonna sit here until I figure it out. I would just sit at my computer until an idea sparked or something happened. And, I still have clients that I found in that time period.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I want to get us back on track on the mental health side of things. Yep. Is there any times 4 years later that you still struggle? Is there times that you've had any suicidal ideations, or any times where you've fallen back?
So I would say not to that extent. I have had thoughts of, if I was willing to get there once, will it happen again? So I've had thoughts of, like, when I start to see triggers, or I start to see similarities in my thought process, the feedback loop, the emotions, maybe the discipline in my daily routine, or how I'm talking to the kids or my wife or whatever, I'll be like, this is familiar. Am I heading in the same direction again? Is it happening again? And then like, it allows me to, and I'll say objectively look at it and be able to course correct. But there's still thoughts of, am I going to go out on my own? Is that still how this story ends for me? Because once it happens once, it's likely to happen again, a thing. But I have never been in the position of gun in my hand.
Yeah.
Ready to be, I have not been there again.
Good. What's your antidote for when you get into those periods?
I get back, so I coach on what I call my championship day. It's something I learned from Ben Newman years ago. He calls it his prize fighter day. I call it my championship day, but it's things that I have full control over that I can execute on every day to consider that day a win, right? So win fast, win often for me is about building winning streaks. And so my antidote to feeling like a loser is go set a plan to win, then execute that plan and simplify the shit out of it. I think so many people build their winning around things that require other people. Like, I'm going to close these contracts, or I'm going to win this thing, or I'm going to get that date, or it all includes other people. For me, my winning are things I have full control over. I'm going to get up on time. I'm not going to drink today. I'm going to work out. I'm going to read. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to make my social media post. I'm going to do the things I have full control over. And then consider that day a win by getting one little win at a time.
Good.
I think so many people devalue their wins. If that's a cautionary tale there, like people devalue your losses for you, and then you devalue your wins. So your losses aren't as bad as you want them to be, and your wins aren't as good as you want them to be. And as you're just stuck in this middle ground, just treading water, because you don't give yourself the ability to feel anything. Yeah. And so we devalue our wins to protect other people, and we allow people to devalue our losses, like we talked about earlier. Who the fuck are you? You're stuck in this world of filtered lifestyles. Like nothing's ever as good as you want it to be, and you're never allowed to feel bad. So you turn into this zombie that doesn't find wins or doesn't find losses, doesn't feel emotion anywhere, and then you wake up one day and you don't even know who you are anymore.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, the wins are so important to celebrate. I've learned this the hard way myself. Because I wouldn't celebrate wins because you're thinking about what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing. Or kind of what I'm thinking what I'm picking up from you is you're worried about what someone else is going to say if you post a win.
Yep.
And in that event, just want to let you know, and Michael back this up, no one winning or that's as successful or more successful than you will ever bash you posting a win. It will always be someone that's not winning or beneath you.
But I would push you even further, say, make a list of things that you're going to accomplish today, check the box, and don't tell anybody. Just consider the day a win.
Yeah.
You're still talking about accomplishments in life, whether like business accomplishments or fitness or 75 hard. And I'm all about leading from the front. But when you're in the point of like your battery's drained to 1%, you got nothing left. When you're trying to come back from the bottom, when you're trying to prevent death of yourself, like as simple as I'm going to spend time with Everett. I'm going to spend time with MJ. I'm going to work out. I'm going to do an unexpected intentional touch. I'm going to text my client list. I'm going to do a daily gratitude note. And I don't tell anybody. I do these things 7 days a week. And when I get away from it, because I get distracted or too busy or undisciplined, I start to go down the wrong path.
Yeah.
So please celebrate your wins. More people need to, but we're talking specifically about how do you pivot from the bottom? Tell yourself you're going to get up at 6 a.m. tomorrow and get up and make your bed. Tell yourself you're going to eat breakfast tomorrow. Tell yourself you're not going to drink tomorrow, and then follow through on that. Now you're at 2%. You got 1% better that day.
Yes.
Then the next day, do it again. Then the next day, do it again. Before you know it, you're back at 35, 40%, and you can take a breath. Because you can't dream when you're at 1%. You can't visualize success when you're at 1%. You can't do anything. It's like your phone goes on to like low battery mode, and half the fucking things stop working when you get below a certain percentage. Your brain is the same way.
Yep.
People say, well, Mike, I can't visualize what I want. Well, of course not. Like you're literally laying face down in the mud. You can't see things yet. But until you pick yourself up, clean yourself off, and climb out of this hole, you're never going to be able to see what the future holds for you. And so I think people feel like, well, if I'm at the bottom, I have to get to the top or I'm not winning. No, I wanted to win the next decision. Because it's the only thing you have control over. You can't fix tomorrow, or you can't fix yesterday, and you can't plan for tomorrow. If I just focus on winning the next decision, the next conversation you have, the next meal you have, the next invite you get, the next DM you get, the next thing that you look in the mirror and say to yourself, win the next decision, one decision at a time. That's where Win Fast, Win Often came from. It sounds like this really awesome tagline. It really is about just, what's the next win I need to get? Right? I need to get up on time tomorrow. I need to go to the gym tomorrow. I need to lay my clothes out tonight. That's a win. If you're not used to laying your clothes out for the gym in the morning, you get that done tonight, that's a fucking win.
Yeah.
It's a positive change in your routine, which is a win. If you do enough of those, that momentum can't be stopped. And then the wins start to grow. And then the impact starts to grow. And all you did was just do what you know you need to do, and then people start watching. And then they start getting impacted by it. It's not about the social media worthy wins. It's about what did you tell yourself you're going to do tomorrow? And then doing it.
And execute. Yeah. So first of all, Win Fast, Win Often is an awesome tagline, but it was also born from this deep pain of yours and how you got yourself out of it. So I love the explanation, and I love the tagline even more now that you've explained where it came from. So what advice, just think back to those 3 or 4 people you asked for help and they said, I can't help you, and the pain that caused. So let's reverse the roles. Let's say you find out someone that looks up to you is suicidal. What advice or help would you give to them, knowing that you've been there and knowing that you didn't get the help from people that you look for?
So my honest answer is there is not an exact answer, because what I wanted from people, because my love language is acts of kindness. I wanted people to give me their time. I wanted them to show up for me. Like, they didn't need to do anything. I just wanted them to want to be around me, to make it feel like I should stay here as in on earth, right? And so for me, because of my love language, it is acts of kindness and time. Those are my love languages. So that's what I was looking for. Right. And so, but I think everybody would benefit from more quality time with people they care about. And so if someone comes to you and you're on that close, this is your inner circle, says they need help, I would say quality time. Go be with them. You don't need to coach them. You don't need to consult them. You don't need to therapy them. You ain't qualified for that.
Yep.
Time. Show them that they're worth your time. And maybe that's just my love language, right? Maybe that's just me. And that's what I was looking for in that moment. So that might not work for everybody. But I don't know if anything matters more to people across the board than you giving your time to them. And so if someone's feeling like they're not worthy of life and you are willing to give them your time, just show up for them. Not save them, not be everything, not therapy, not consulting, not sympathy, not even empathy, because you probably can't even empathize with what they're dealing with. Just go be with them. Invite them to lunch, invite them to dinner, invite them to go do something, and get them out of their own, because where I struggled is because I had nowhere to go. I just sat in my own feedback loop in my own head. There was no break.
Yeah.
And so I would say time. If someone comes to you in that situation, first, suggest professional help. Because that's another statement. People are so afraid of therapy. It's like the best thing in the freaking world. You got to find the right therapist. You got to find the person that's right for you. You got to get engaged with somebody who you respect and at least believe can help you. That's important. I've interviewed therapists and found ones hey, I don't think we're going to get along. Let me go find somebody else. But suggest professional help and then just go give them time. And not, are you okay? Don't ever fucking ask them. They're not okay. And if you ask them if they're okay, they're afraid to tell you no, which we've already talked about. And if they say yes, they're lying. Don't put them in that position. They're not okay. Don't ask them if they're okay. Go ask them to do something. Go get them out of their routine. Go get them out of that feedback loop. Go do something that stops them from thinking about it. Go to a movie. Go to the shooting range. Go shoot basketball. Go whatever. Go do
Driving
something.
range, take them golf, whatever. It's just such good advice because
spend time with them.
Just like a kid, love is spelled Time. That's for us adults too.
Yeah. Don't take no for an answer because they're going to say no because they feel like they're burdensome to you. It's not a question. It's a, hey, we're going golfing Sunday. I talked to your wife. We're all set. I'll pick you up at 9:30. Don't ask because they're going to feel like a burden. They're going to feel like you're only doing it because they're hurting or they're broken. No, you just tell them, hey, we're going to dinner. I'm picking you up at 5:30 tonight. Be ready.
That's
because that same person, because they're likely a people pleaser, they're not going to want to let you down. So if you tell them that you're going to do something as opposed to asking them, then their people pleaser kicks in and they'll be ready.
Yeah, that's so good. Hey, one thing before we're running out of time. So the one thing I wanted to make sure we didn't miss, you said yours started with Oxy.
Yeah.
I've also had double hernia surgery. And by the way, my last one, I told her I got a 2-for-1 surgery because I told them to dip down and take care of the vasectomy while they were in there. So get real vulnerable with everybody on the show today, both Mike and I. So I refused to take the Oxy because I had taken it before and it made me feel weird. I was like, okay, so can I do, just Advil or whatever to manage the pain? And it is a painful thing because it's your stomach. You use your abs to do everything. And then the vasectomy on top of it. But my point with that is that I've had people on the show that have been addicts, and some people take that Oxy the first time and they're hooked. Others, like myself or like Mike, may feel a little weird with it. Opiate addiction is awful. And I've had a friend that has gone from opiate to heroin. Now people are going from opiate to heroin to fentanyl, and they're killing themselves through that. So point being is be really careful with pain management and ask your doctors for options. Don't just take the Oxys or whatever other pain pills that could lead you to an addiction or could lead you to feel suicidal, because there are those risks with all opiates. So I just want to make sure that we toss that out there and make sure you're not just saying, oh yeah, doctor gave me these, I'm going to take them. No, let's ask some questions.
Yep.
Let's see what your family history is. Let's go down that path first. All right. So last question before we move on, let you on with your day. What do you think the best path forward is to fixing some of the cultural stuff behind brain health, mental health, however you want to put it, and getting behind this idea of zero suicides in our country and our world?
I think just like what we're doing is just talking about it. I think I had a client tell me this once, and it struck me as, well, duh, but to him it was this realization of, Mike, you showed me it's okay to struggle sometimes and still be a champion. And I'm like, when did we get this perception that champions are these clean, cool, awesome people? I've said this for a decade. No one wins a championship with a clean jersey. No one wins a championship with a clean jersey. And so people were like, Mike, because I struggle, and I'm open about struggling. Like I struggle like everybody else. Like I'm building something I've never seen before. I fail forward all the time, and I talk about it. And it's like, man, like you made it like it's okay to fail sometimes and still win. It's like it's necessary to fail sometimes to still win. That's the only way. And so I would say just talk about it. If it's something you're like, just put it out there. And yeah, your mom might be upset about it, but like you might save 25 people's lives.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. Yeah, maybe people close to you are going to be embarrassed by the fact they couldn't help you. No one said it was their job to help you. It's your job to just be open about it to help other people. So I would say the best way to move forward to get to a zero-sum environment where people are not killing themselves is have more people talk about the fact that it's okay to fail forward. It's okay and necessary to live, when I was, quick side note, but when I was growing up playing baseball, they used to give away the Dirtbag Award went to the dirtiest player on the field because that person tried hardest. And so like, how dirty can I get? How hard can I try? It's not supposed to be pretty. It's going to hurt. It's going to look ugly. There's going to be failures. You're going to get injured. You're going to be in pain. Only marketers pretend that it's supposed to be easy, so you'll buy their shit. But that's not real. So I think more people are just going to talk about the fact it's real to struggle.
Amen.
So, but thank you for being willing to put this effort out there, Josh. I mean, obviously, hopefully this helps some people, but, more people need to be willing to talk about it. I have been pretty open about it because I am winning.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I was always winning, and that's normal.
Yeah. Yep. And you still struggle. And that's the paradox, right? So as Mike just concluded there's a paradox where if you stay in that victimhood, people are going to read right through that and hate it and are going to lean away from you. However, if you talk about your struggle and about your wins or how you got through that struggle to help others, that is going to be the magnetizing towards you, and you will help others in that vein. So, brother, I can't thank you enough for being vulnerable enough to share your story with the audience today. It will help people. I know there's going to be major feedback, positive feedback in this episode. I mean, just being able to share such a vulnerable story from such a successful and impactful human like you are is going to help many people. So again, thank you, Mike. But hey, I always want to do that. We did this on the episode before, but in case there's a new listener, how can people follow you, get in touch with you? What's the best ways?
You just go to MikeClaudio.com. That's the link to the nonprofit, the for-profit, the podcast, the YouTube, everything's there.
Perfect. So MikeClaudio.com, check it out. Spartans, as always, remember the good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.